Howdy folks, Greyhawk4x4 coming at you again, your resident vintage gamer. Today's video, we are going to talk about the issue of the status of World of Warcraft, the retail version, the one that's getting ready to have their next expansion, Shadowlands. We're not going to talk about Classic, maybe just a teeny tiny bit, but for the most part this is all going to be about the retail version. We're going to talk about Battle for Azeroth, which is the current expansion, and then Shadowlands. This video was requested by one of my most loyal subscribers, and so I decided that I'm going to make this a comprehensive video. I'm going to talk about, because she asked specifically about my thoughts on Battle for Azeroth and the upcoming expansion, Shadowlands. In order to put that into context, I have to make this a bigger video. I have to talk about my history with World of Warcraft, my as it were my gaming career with World of Warcraft, because it has been a long one, as for a lot of people. But I've got to go in a little bit, go back a little bit further and talk about my origins with playing MMOs in general. So this is going to be a long video. I'm giving you warning up front. You may want to get something to drink. If this isn't your thing, you may want to skip it. You're welcome to enjoy, and because I'm going to go into some detail here, and it's going to take a while. So let's get started. So my history with MMOs, massive multiplayer online role-playing games, started with Ultima Online. Ultima Online came out back in, I want to say, the late 90s. I don't remember the exact year, but there was Ultima Online, and there was the first EverQuest, and I did play both of them. I should say I dabbled, because I was in a very high stress job at the time. I was a corporate security manager for Universal Studios, and I had the responsibility of doing the security for the entire lower lot where all the filming is done. I wasn't involved to a great deal with the tour area up. If you're familiar, if you've taken the tour, that was a separate division of security that we called it upper lot and lower lot. I was the lower lot security manager. I was the for the studio. So I had a lot of responsibility. So I was on call 24/7, and I was working a lot of hours. So I didn't have a lot of time to invest in an MMO. Nevertheless, I dabbled in both Ultima Online and EverQuest. So that was my initial, dipping my toes into the water for MMOs. There was one even before that and it was the original Neverwinter Nights. It was the gold box, and it was partnered with AOL at the time, and you had to pay per minute that you were on. It's technically one of the, and Meridian 59 was another one. Those were the very first two actual MMOs. You can Google them. But the original Neverwinter Nights, not the one that you're thinking of, the more current version, the original gold box version by SSI, but you had to pay by the minute, and you paid through your AOL account. So you guys can Google that and see more about it. But anyway, so I dabbled with those first, Ultima Online, EverQuest, but didn't have the time to invest and so forth. Then ended up moving to Texas. And when I was in Texas, the Star Wars MMO, Star Wars Galaxies, came out. And I don't even remember how I heard about it. I think it was on maybe through PC Gamer magazine or something. And I just happened to go down to GameStop, and sure enough, they had them. And if I remember correctly, I bought the collector's edition right off the bat. And me and my buddy, who we call Big John, because he's a great big guy, and we at the time, his family, my family, we were sharing a house. We were working together at the company. We were both managers at the company there that we worked together, and we ended up getting a house, and we were sharing the house until, because they wanted to get their own house, but they wanted a little bit more time to save up some money for a down payment and so forth. So we had kind of a two-winged thing where they had a wing and we had a wing. But we had our game room was, we had a joint game room that we had both of our computers in there, and we could play, a co-op game or MMO, whatever. And I say that because Star Wars Galaxies was pretty much the first MMO that I sunk my teeth into. And me and John, we sat in there and played for hours and got deep into Star Wars Galaxies. We even got another coworker into it, who was a huge Star Wars fan. And we, I got more into it than John did. And the reason was I was really into the crafting aspect and the player housing, and then they had player cities where you could actually become the mayor of your own city. And it was a lot more detail than I'm going to go into here. But the bottom line was, it was, in my opinion, the best game for me, the best game ever made. And then it got ruined. That's a whole separate video. I've already talked about it in other videos. You can go back and check my channel. But during that whole time, with me and John and our other buddy Mike, that was a coworker, we actually got into a guild that started in Star Wars Galaxies. They became a huge guild in Star Wars Galaxies. We changed the name of the guild a few times, and they ended up settling on ROTJ, which was Remnants of the Jedi. And they became a huge guild on our server and so forth. And then, once the game got ruined by SOE, Sony Online, and LucasArts, I'm sure they were, there's a lot of debate on what caused the downfall of it. But the bottom line was it got ruined. And ROTJ, our guild, started migrating to a new game called World of Warcraft. Now, timing-wise, this was horrible timing because I was in the process of moving back from Texas back to California. So I didn't have internet for a while because until we found we were going to buy a condo. Until we found our condo, we were staying with my father-in-law, and so I really didn't have any way to play an MMO. And my wife was working, I was working. And we're trying to find a place to buy a condo. And so when I finally did get able to have internet again, I jumped back into Star Wars Galaxies, even though it had been completely changed and was fucked up and all that. And I kept trying it and wanting to like it, and it just broke my heart because it was just not the same and everything. And in the meantime, ROTJ now because they had migrated to World of Warcraft, they had started becoming established in World of Warcraft. And so I would say it was probably about a 3-month period where they had a jump start on me. And after about that 3-month period, I ended up, saying, they kept on saying, you ought to come over and try it. You got to come over and try it. This is a great game. And I was resistant, but I finally just said, you know what, I can't play Star Wars Galaxies anymore. It's just been ruined for me. And I decided to try World of Warcraft. So I did, on the server for RTJ. And at that time, they changed the name again once they got into World of Warcraft to Nemesis, I believe. And then there was even another change after that. Nox Orions. I think they settled on after Nemesis. But regardless, they were Nemesis. So I get over there, and I started a Night Elf. And I did not like the game at all. I didn't like the starter area for the Night Elves. I didn't like all of the wispy, ethereal feel and all that. It just didn't grab me. So I had my character, I had my account and everything, but I went back. I think I went back to Star Wars Galaxies again to give it another try. Just kept trying, just couldn't do it. So I come back again. Somebody said, one of the guys in the guild said, "Hey, you gotta come back. Try it again, man. If you didn't like the Night Elves, try, something different." So I come back and I started a dwarf character outside of Ironforge where you start. And I was hooked because it was completely different. I was a hunter and I was able to, at level 10, I think it was, I was able to get a pet. And it had the right feel with the snowy atmosphere and the hunting lodges and the taverns and all that stuff. 180 degrees from the Night Elf stuff. And then I was hooked. So, of course, I start playing, and I'm a big crafter, and it didn't have as, nearly as good a crafting as Star Wars Galaxies, but as I was playing, I was realizing that there was a lot of challenge to the crafting aspect of finding unique recipes, and then there were some that took a lot of difficult resources to find, and so that kind of hooked me. So I was like, I want to level up so I want to be the best leather worker on the server, and that type of thing. And so I played the shit out of it, and the rest of the guild, I wasn't much of a raider, never was, but dungeons and stuff like that, we, dungeon crawled like crazy, did a lot of solo stuff, got into the lore, the whole bit, rolled alts, so that I could do other professions that would support, so I'd have like, a skinner, a miner, a herbalist, and so it was all encompassing, and it really grabbed me. Then Burning Crusade came out at one point, and I remember that I bought the regular Burning Crusade, and then I was in Walmart one day. I had no idea, so I didn't get the original collector's edition for World of Warcraft. I didn't even know there was one. But I was in Walmart after Burning Crusade came out, and it had been out for a while, and I'm just looking around as you do, back when video games were on shelves, and I'm looking around, and I see this green box, and it's over there. It's right there. It's this one right here. And I was like, whoa, that's World of Warcraft. I was like, oh, collector's edition for Burning Crusade. And they had it marked down to like $20. It was like, I think it was when they came out, they were $75 or something like that, original, or 65, 75, whatever. But they had it marked down for 20. For whatever reason, it hadn't sold. And they marked it down to $20. And I'm like, I'm going to get that. So that was my first collector's edition. And of course, I had to get the strategy guide. I always got all those because I love the artwork and everything. And so I lucked out and got that one. And then after that, every expansion that came out, I always pre-ordered the collector's editions. You can see that's my Doomhammer replica right there. Yeah, I have a Doomhammer. And by the way, that thing, it's a replica. It's made out of plaster or something like that, but it's heavy as hell. If you were to hit somebody with that, it would probably break in two, but it might be a fatal blow if you hit somebody, even though it's just a replica and it's plaster. So if someone broke in down here, I'd have one shot, And so then I just kept buying the collector's edition. I got, with Burning Crusade, they introduced new professions with jewel crafting. It was only jewel crafting. And then Lich King was inscription. And of course, so I'm rolling alts to do all these different, so I'm trying to max out on all the different professions so I can, provide or start like a little business to make gold through my professions and so forth, because that's what I enjoyed in Star Wars Galaxies. Of course, a lot different, but it was nevertheless, it was still fun and challenging to get all these find these different recipes and stuff. And the fishing content was really good in World of Warcraft, so that kept me hooked because that was another profession kind of. And you got a lot of perks and stuff by doing that. And so that, I mean, the game had me. And then Cataclysm at some point. So you had Lich King, and I'm trying to think. So I remember pre-ordering and going down, and at that, after the expansions after that, once Lich King started, and then ones after that, I would pre-order through GameStop, and they would have, you know, you'd go in and say, I pre-ordered the collector's edition, you have your collector's edition, and they had a stack of these, and they made it real easy to just grab everything and go, and it was, I would always do the midnight pickup at GameStop, and so I would go get my collector's edition, my book, come back, and at midnight, you know, at about 12:30 then, I'm loading it up, trying to, you know, I think they might have even did preloading then, but trying to get on and jump right into the content. And I remember with Wrath of the Lich King, I leveled 10 levels, whatever it was. It would have been 70 to 80, I think. From 70 to 80. I did that in like maybe 2 sittings. Like I marathoned and just leveled the shit out of this. The other thing about Wrath was they had a second fishing competition. They had one in vanilla, the Stranglethorn one, but then they came out with another one in Wrath of Lich King, which for some reason at some point they ditched. And that was my initial, it should have been my clue to how things were going to go with World of Warcraft. When they ditched that second fishing competition for whatever dumbass reason, because it added flavor to the game, it added something else to do. It, you know, and I had won the fishing competition in classic, or not, I say classic, in vanilla. I'd won it twice. I'd come in first place, so because you could get different, the only way there were certain items that you could get by winning the competition. And, well, one was you got a title, salty, but the other thing was there was like a ring or a trinket, which turned you into a fish, and you could basically swim under, you could basically do like a druid and basically be aquatic form, speed boost, underwater breathing, the whole thing, which was fantastic if you weren't a druid. But there was other things that you could get from winning it. And I had won it twice, but I never won the one in Wrath of the Lich King. And I kept trying, and I was so close one time. I remember you had to catch a shark, and so the thing to do was you had to turn it in Dalaran. And I set, as anybody that was smart would do, you set your Hearthstone to the tavern there in Dalaran, so right by the person where you turn it in. So the minute you catch the shark, you hit your Hearthstone, boom, go back and run. And I caught the damn shark, hearthed, zone in, and just as I'm running up to the turn-in guy, I'll never forget, it was a Tauren, a damn horde Tauren, like there's another kind of Tauren, a Tauren it turned it in and won the damn competition. Seconds before me, and I never got to win the damn thing, and then they took it out of the game. For no apparent reason. They just took it out of the game. So that is the one thing I'll never, something I'd never be able to accomplish because they just took it out of the game. And that should have been my clue of how things were going to go with World of Warcraft. So to me, Wrath was the pinnacle of the game. The best that it was, And then Cataclysm came, changed everything. A lot of debate about better, for worse, whatnot. I drink a little water. Told you this was going to be a long video. So, excuse me. So yeah, Cataclysm comes out. A lot of debate. Some people loved it. A lot of people hated it. I was kind of ambivalent until I got to explore everything. And I was okay with the story dictating the changes in the geography, the permanent changes in geography and all that other stuff. I was okay with that. until I figured out that because of all that, there were all of these recipes and stuff for crafting, patterns, recipes, schematics, whatever you want to call them, that were no longer available. They just poof, they're gone because now that person that used to give that's not there anymore because they changed the geography. And that was just like a death blow to me, because I'm like, well, that's not really fair, because we didn't even have an inkling that was going to happen, because maybe you could have time to go out and try and get them, but it just became items that you could no longer craft. And it basically made it so that people that had, and I was one of them that had recipes, I did have a lot of them that poofed, and I could make the items, but I also had some that I never got, like the red dragon scale chest plate that you got in Upper Blackrock Spires, and I was a leather worker, and I ran that damn thing so many times and never got the pattern to drop, and it was buying on pickup, which is another thing. Recipes and shit like that should never be buying on pickup. You should always be able to, if somebody gets one and they want to sell it on the auction hall or through the economy or trade it, they should be able to do that, because of this type of shit where you're basically waiting for the random number generator to be in your favor to get that damn thing to drop. Then they change the entire, you never get it. They change the whole game, and then you can't get it. It's literally because it was buying on pickup. So even if somebody had one, they couldn't trade it to you, so you're just kind of asked out. And that was for me, was the beginning of the downfall of World of Warcraft from my experience. And then you had Mists of Pandaria, which had, Mists of Pandaria had some redeeming aspects to it, because they introduced a micro game, a mini game like farming, and you had a little farm that you could develop and farm these vegetables and so forth, which you would need to turn in for quests and to get other items. You get tokens for turning them in, which you could get other items. And it was as far as crafting went, it was a fantastic addition to the game. And you had this little farm, which was almost kind of like player housing, so that really was awesome and grabbed me. And I even built up kind of a little business of, I had all my alts get their farms up and growing all these different crops. And they sold in like bunches of 100 or something like that you could turn in to get these tokens to get gear or whatever. And I started a business doing that. I was selling the shit out of bundles of vegetables from the farms for other players who didn't want to take the time to do the farming and everything. The fishing content in Mist of Pandaria was great too, because there was actually a mount that you could get that could walk on water. And the only mount in the game that would do that was you had to get it through fishing. And it was a fucking lot of work to do it. It was you had to do daily quests for like a couple of months to get that son of a bitch. I forget what they called that, the creature that was like a swamp creature that had big flat feet and it could walk on water. But then, of course, later on, as we're going to get to, they changed that, and now everybody could have that ability. So it no longer made it special to bust your ass as a fisherman and get this mount that you could only get that way. They took that ability, they took that speciality out of the game. And that kind of shit continued with and by the way, I did want to show off a couple of relics here. So with Burning Crusade, there was if you got for a short time, if you got the Brady Games book, there was a bundle that came with this binder that had the Draenor symbol and the Blood Elf symbols. And it was it's just a simple little binder, but the only way you could get that was with the bundle of the strategy guide. So I managed to yoink that, and I have all of my old World of Warcraft notes in this binder, which comes in handy because now I'm playing Classic and I'm having to use those. And then they also came out with Mists of Pandaria. They came out with a collector's edition of the strategy guide that had this beautiful limited edition tome in it. And look at the size of that damn thing. This is, and it had your gorgeous artwork inside, you know, like so. Let's see if I can turn it. So, satin finish, beautiful book, and it even came with a set of World of Warcraft chopsticks, Mr. Pandaria chopsticks, which I use these to eat my sushi. So there's a couple relics that may or may not be hard to find. The binder and that stuff might be hard to find now. So after Mists, what came after Mists? Let me think. Was it Draenor? I'm trying to think here. I might be missing. Cataclysm, Mists. Must have been Draenor. Warlords of Draenor. And they had kind of player housing in that with your garrisons, which were kind of fun. I enjoyed the player housing aspect of it. It even got to the point where you could collect certain parts and you could build a remote auctioneer. So you could essentially have a bank, an auctioneer, a guild bank, and all that in your garrison. But it wasn't really true player housing. You didn't have player housing like, you know, Elder Scrolls Online or EverQuest 2 or Star Wars Galaxies, or just, you know, you could go into a Final Fantasy, was it 14? All these different great housing systems. And Draenor wasn't it. And then you had Legion. So Draenor did not grab me. I did not play. I think I leveled and got bored. It just didn't. I mean, the garrison system and the naval system, you know, you had naval yard and everything. That kind of grabbed me for a while, but that got really competitive, or not competitive, repetitive. And so I kind of lost interest. And the crafting aspect, the professions themselves, they started really just dumbing down to where they were useless. And then Legion, same thing. They dumbed everything down even more. Professions were basically, in Legion, were basically useless as far as I was concerned. I think the only thing, there was like a riding harness or something like that that you could make, that as a leather worker I could make and sell, which allowed you to put on your mount and then you wouldn't get knocked off your mount or stunned for like 2 hours. And so I think I was able to sell a few of those, but for the most part, professions were dead. And that's going to lead us into Battle for Azeroth. So, Battle for Azeroth. I love the setting. I love the whole pirate nautical theme and all that. But everything felt choreographed. You go here and you do this quest line, you move to this, you do this quest line, you move to this, and then everything was a grind. So it's choreographed, grind, professions, absolutely at that point, worthless. No, just fucking busy work to grind to get to max, useless as far as I was concerned. Now, maybe, and this is where is gonna show the imbalance in professions. Alchemists, people that make consumables that are used in raiding, yeah, they could probably be viable. But gear-wise, like blacksmiths and leather workers and tailors, no, because all your gear comes from raiding. I mean, as it progressed, because there was good gear, craftable good gear in expansions up through Lich King, probably. Maybe not Lich King. Yeah, Lich King kind of got wonky too. But definitely, once you get into BFA, as far as I was concerned, you know, there was no point in having professions, and everybody is doing the same thing. You're all trying to grind to build up your neck piece with Azurite. You build up your Azurite level to get Azurite gear, and you're having to, go on public quests and hope that a piece of gear drops. There's no individuality to the game at that point. BFA, once I got leveled and realized there was no point in, I don't want to just keep logging in. I'm not a raider, so I want to just log in and do dailies and world quests, on a hamster wheel. Just didn't do it, didn't do anything for me. So now Shadowlands. I have been watching some videos on. I'm not in the alpha. I used to get beta for Cataclysm and Mists, Draenor. I got beta invites for all that stuff. Early beta invites, but I didn't get anything for Legion and anything for BFA. And I don't think I'll get anything for Shadowlands. So what I'm watching is a mixed bag. I like that they're adding customizations to character creation with different looks, allowing you to much further customize the look of your characters, of your toons. I think that's going to add a lot of flavor and depth to the game, because there's a lot of classes and a lot of races now, and now they're adding this additional customization. So hopefully, you'll have a lot of unique looking character models running around, which I think is a good thing. The level squish, I'm not really sure how I feel about it yet. I think I'd have to play through the first few levels. There's a new starter zone apparently up to level 10, and I'm getting conflicting reports on whether or not you're still going to be able to level in the racial specific area for your race. I hope they don't take that away, because as a dwarf or a gnome or even a human or undead, whatever, each of the starting zones had, some lore involved with your starting quest zones and stuff in those areas. You had Coleridge Valley for the dwarves and the gnomes originally. Then they changed it to Nomergang, and then you had Northshire for humans. You had, and they all had their individual little areas, and that was pretty cool. I hope they don't change that and just make everything homogenized through one starting area. Because I'm getting conflicting reports. It sounds like they kind of did homogenize it, and then I heard somebody else say that you do the generic starting zone, then you can move on to your racial one. You have to do more research to see on that. But the level squish incorporated into that, I think I'll have to play through it to see how I feel. I think what they're doing with mounts is a lot better. I never thought that the mount system worked very well in vanilla. The fact that it was, to me, it seemed illogical that you couldn't ride a horse up until level 40. You're a hero out slaying all these crazy ass creatures and stuff, but you can't ride a horse. And if it was just a money thing, that would be fine. Training is expensive and a horse is expensive or whatever. That's logical. That's reasonable. But if you were somehow managed to get the gold, why do you have to wait to an arbitrary level to be able to get a mount? That just never made sense to me. And it sounds like they're lowering everything significantly. I think you get your first mount now at level 10, which seems a lot more reasonable. Now, of course, with the level squish, I don't know how that, till I play through, I don't know how that correlates. But it seems like it makes sense because you go through the starter area and then you're level 10 and then you can get them out. And that to me makes more sense. So, and then they're doing like flying. There was 2 tiers before, and it was just a gold sink is all it was to keep getting you to pay for training for these different levels. And apparently they're just going to 1 level for flying training now instead of 2 separate ones. So they're taking that gold sink out, I hope. Of course, until we see what the amounts are, who knows? Until I see what the amounts are, who knows? They might have just combined the cost, so it still might just be as big a gold sink. I haven't done a lot of research into the class changes. I did watch some stuff on Hunter because that was my main. And again, it's going to be one of those things where I think I'm going to have to play through some of it to really get a feel for it. To me, what's going to make or break it for me is if they're going to make professions or a housing system, which it doesn't sound like they're going to do, or something like that, something to make you feel like if you're not a raider, that you can still have a substantial impact on the game world and your experience. I don't know. If they... I probably will not play it. I'll probably end up pre-ordering the goddamn thing because I always, I've got every collector's edition except for the original, and I didn't get the one for Classic because that was just a statue, basically. So I don't have the Classic one for WoW Classic that just came out, and I don't have the original collector's box, but I have all the other ones, so I'll probably end up pre-ordering the damn thing with my fingers crossed that it's going to be enjoyable. What I'll probably have to do is I'll probably have to roll a new character because it'll just piss me off if on my main, if it feels like I'm on the hamster wheel again and they haven't done anything with professions. And what will kind of energize me will be if I start a new character and go through the new starting area, with new, being able to customize more with the character creation and all that. We'll see. So I'm probably going to get it. Probably going to play it. Going to try it. Probably going to do a new character. And if, after all that, if I still like it, then I'll probably go on my main and level my main up to max and go from there. But if it's just the hamster wheel stuff again, I'll probably stop after that. So, anyway, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Long video, told you it would be. Tell me your thoughts on BFA and what your feelings of Shadowlands are. Because, as you can see, I had to tell my history so you understood where I was coming from and what gets me excited about an MMO. As opposed to BFA and Shadowlands. Now, Shadowlands yet to be seen, so maybe they will help redeem the game in my eyes to make it more in-depth for me to play. So, anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm not sure what my next video is going to be, but we did play D&D again last night, so it will probably involve that. It'll probably be another vlog. I might just do one just on we did a lot last night, so I might just do an update on last night's gaming session. So, anyway, guys, my voice is going, so I'm going to check out. We'll see you guys later. Catch you on the flip side.